he would wait for everyone to fall asleep, and then what happened is I would still be asleep, and what happened is he would wake up to me doing that. Or I would wake up to him doing that to me. So I had no, it wasn't a situation where it was like, let's try this. No. He saw me as a really strong individual. I am a really strong individual. And so he had to come at me when I was at my weakest. And that was the way he did that.
Welcome to OTR, Over the Rainbow, Achieving Mental Health for Real. This podcast offers hope to many people who needlessly suffer from mental health issues. Your host, Bob Adelman, brings you information on how you can recover from any mental health issue and achieve a happier life. If you want to know more, please check out his trailer. Bob's notes on today's show follows.
In this episode, Krystal Clark shares her story about molestation at the age of 7 from her cousin who was even younger. This abuse at the age of 7 and the shame she felt triggered her post-traumatic stress disorder later in life. She turned to alcohol as many with depression do. Finally, she started a recovery. Krystal Clark is now doing well in her recovery. She is an author, blogger, life coach, public speaker, and data management professional.
Now, here's Bob with today's show.
Hello, Krystal. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I am great. How are you doing?
That's good. So I guess the first question is, what year did you first have a problem in your family? Could you start into that?
Yeah, absolutely. So at a really young age, and it's sometimes it gets a little foggy, but I would almost say 8, 7, something around that age. I have a large family, both on my mother's side and my father's side, and so we usually rotate. And what ended up happening is I guess I reached a certain age where a particular cousin of mine began to notice me. And he ended up being 2 years younger than I. But he exposed me to something that I had never experienced before. So, and the interesting part about it is the shame. Okay, and the shame is that most people don't talk about molestation in a great level of detail. No one wants to say what that person actually did to them. They don't want to reveal a lot of detail. And the most thing that was shameful to me was that there was pleasure in what he was doing. And
right. How old were you? Do you know exactly?
Yeah, it was. I'm thinking it was like 7 or 8 because I just remember being really young. Okay.
Do you want to talk about what he did, or?
Yeah, I can tell you. It was
Sure.
really just clitoral stimulation. There was no penetration or anything like that going on.
Okay, all right.
Really known anything about any kind of intimacy. I mean, I was just an innocent child, and then this happened.
Right.
So I knew I did not want that. I knew I didn't want it from him, but I was conflicted because I was like, well, if I didn't want this, then why is it so good? So
exactly.
Right. So this was, and most of my family is in Baton Rouge, and we lived in Omaha, Nebraska. So I only saw them twice a year, which made the molestation, in my opinion, bearable. So we grew. So obviously we would rotate. Whenever I would visit, I would rotate to visit everybody so that everybody got the chance to see me. So whenever I saw this particular cousin, it would happen, and then I was out and going off living a happy childhood with the rest of my other cousins.
How long was the offensive? Was it the whole stay that you were there, like hours or minutes?
It would probably be at night. Like it'll be something that would happen at night because as cousins, you all sleep in the same bed, or we all create a little camp,
right.
Or a little campground in the living room or something like that.
Was there anyone else with you, or was it always just when you two were alone?
Either or. Either he would wait for everyone to fall asleep, and then what happened is I would still be asleep, and what happened is he would wake up to me doing that. Or I would wake up to him doing that to me.
Okay.
So I had no. It wasn't a situation where it was like, let's try this. No. He saw me as a really strong individual. I am a really strong individual. And so he had to come at me when I was at my weakest.
Gotcha.
And that was the way he did that.
So it lasted a little bit longer than an hour?
Oh, very long. Well, you mean during the moment?
Yeah.
No, it didn't last that long.
Okay.
It would just happen, and then I was kind of like, okay, I'm going to turn over because I don't know what's going on, you know, and then he would stop because he would see he would get scared.
All right. So do you blame him? Do you think that he thought it was bad and did it anyway? Or how's your feeling about what he did to you?
That's a great question. So let me explain this part first. So he molested me for quite a long time. And what ended up happening is he ended up coming to live with us. And I was in junior high at the time. And so when I was in 9th grade, so when he came to live with me, the molestation escalated. It was during the day. It was at night. It was constant. So I became really depressed.
Did you say I don't like that, don't do that? Or what did you say when he did it?
I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything. I was incredibly frozen because no one has ever done anything to me.
Yeah, you didn't know what was going on, yeah.
Yeah. So I just, as I said, it's just you want him to be done. You just want it to be finished, and you want to move on.
Right.
Yeah.
How much older was he? I'm sorry.
I was 2 years older.
You were 2 years older. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I've had, when you try different things with your friend or whatever, but when you don't want it, that's where it becomes a very, very bad thing because it's very shameful, I'm sure, right? You didn't want to tell your parents, right?
No. And what's interesting about not telling my parents, this wasn't me not telling my parents because my mom had always told me, she had told me early on, no one should touch you, this, and that, right? But what happened is she would list people, these are the kind of people that, if it's an adult, if it's this, whatever. But there was a particular situation that she didn't give me an example that it could be a family member. So when this happened, I was like, you didn't tell me, you didn't give me this person, this wasn't in your list. So now I'm stuck with having that. But the second part was me also I didn't believe that my parents would take my side. I didn't at all. Okay. No, because they brought him in. They brought him in to raise him because they were bringing him out of a bad home situation and bringing him to help foster his education and instill some values and stuff like that.
So was he did he live in a bad neighborhood that had a lot of children that were
I wouldn't say it was a bad neighborhood. Okay. It was an unstable home environment.
I see.
For him.
I see. I'm wondering if the same thing happened to him. That's a lot of times that happens.
My mother told me that another cousin did that, but I don't know. I have no I don't care. Okay. I don't know.
So how many years did this go on?
So if I say from I'll just give it the benefit of the doubt. Say 8 and then 14. So
6 years. Yeah.
What is 6 years?
Yeah. That's bad. That's not good. And your depression started because of that, you think?
Yeah, depression, also anxiety.
Right.
Because I immediately manifested control. So I wanted to control things around me because when he touched me, right, I lost control in my body. Right. I lost control.
Right, that's terrible.
So, exactly. So now not only that, I was really uncomfortable with intimacy because I was exposed to something before I even wanted it. And every time I felt pleasure from someone that I did want pleasure from, I always correlated it back to this.
Yeah, of course.
So I couldn't separate it.
So where did you go somewhere finally? And did you ever tell your parents?
I did. So when I was in ninth grade at 14, when I said I was depressed and basically borderline suicidal at that point, I came and I told my mom. And my mom told my dad, and then they brought him in the room, and then they made me come in the room and him apologize to me. But when he left, that they told him to leave so that they could talk to me. And they said, okay, so now that we've gotten that done, what do you want to do? Do you want him to leave? Do you want him to stay? And I think in my head, I was like, why are you asking if I was my abuser?
Yeah, that's a lot to
yeah. And the only thing I can think of is you want me to make the call so that if it ever got out, because I know you're not going to tell anybody, if it ever got out, you would say, oh, well, it's because Krystal didn't want him here. It wasn't because he did this to my daughter.
Right.
I'm protecting her, blah, blah, blah. It was like a way of them kind of to not own anything.
But they knew that you were very upset and very depressed about the situation, right?
Yeah. Yes. And they just did not.
They just didn't want to deal with it at all, right?
No. And it's interesting because if I talk to my mom, I don't talk to my dad about it, but if I talk to my mom, she remembers it completely different. And she even she's like, no, I didn't say that. I did this. I said, ask your family members if you told them that he did that. And she went back and asked them, and they said, no, we never knew.
Wow.
That is not what you told us. So she has to come to grips with how she handled that in her own way, and I have to accept that.
Did they seem visibly upset when you told them?
No, they weren't. No, nothing like that. It was just, I don't know. It kind of felt real apathetic. It didn't feel as if they cared one way or the other. That's the way it came across to me. I didn't see anger at him about it. And so to answer your earlier question, did I hold any anger towards him? Yeah. Anybody who I saw getting along with him, it upset me. Anybody who I saw, because I didn't know, because they didn't tell anyone anything. And so all I could think of is like, I want everyone to hate him. I wanted everyone to isolate him, etc. I wanted him, whatever he got in life, I was like, you deserve every bit of it. That's how I felt.
So you're very angry, yes. So,
yeah.
Do you think he did that to other cousins or relatives, or is it just you?
I think it was just me.
Okay.
To me, it was just and I had someone ask me, well, what made you speak up? Because you didn't speak up all those other years. What happened that you spoke up at that time? And I said, well, he was escalating and he was obsessed with me. So I was scared he was going to do more than what he was doing.
Okay.
He was becoming more frequent. He was getting bolder. And then also he liked me. He really liked me.
Did he ever undress or anything like that? Or?
No, nothing like that.
Okay.
We didn't. That's what I was getting afraid of.
But it's still horrible.
Yeah.
It's very, very, very upsetting at 7 years old because you don't even know what sex is. And to have that happen is terrible. So did you seek help from a psychiatrist or anything?
I did ask my mom for a therapist. I went to one session, and it was so... The way she was asking me questions, I was like, whoa, I'm not ready to answer that like that right now. Because she did ask me, she was like, well, did it feel good? And I'm like, well, I don't want to say that. So I lied and was like, no,
Really?
It didn't. And
oh my God.
Yeah, so it didn't. I was like, I don't want to go back. So
was that a man? Was that a man or a woman?
No, it was a woman. It was a woman.
Yeah.
And I was like,
I don't think that's an appropriate question.
No, it was just so weird. And so,
what age were you when you went to her?
I was 14. I was 14.
14. Okay.
Um,
And so she was no help. She was a weirdo.
yeah, yeah, she didn't.
There's lots of them, believe me.
Yes, yes. So it turned me off of therapy for quite a bit, and I ended up. So this never left me. I became an introvert. I developed anxiety, and what ended up happening is I had to cope with the thoughts of this, and the only way I could kind of live, if you will, was I basically became an alcoholic. So throughout college,
Oh boy.
yeah, I was, and when I say I was drinking throughout the day, every day. I
Did you drink hard stuff or just beer? Or?
No, this is liquor, like vodka.
Okay.
Yeah, and you couldn't smell it, and so it was just interesting. I didn't realize I was even an alcoholic. I didn't realize that I was coping with it this way. I had no idea any of this was. I was just doing it, and I think I'm looking at it now, and I'm reliving it and saying, okay, that was what was going on. So.
Any drugs?
No. And interesting that you brought that up, because I met my husband the latter part of my junior year. And at that point, that's when my body basically stopped. It was rejecting the alcohol. So if I would smell it or take a drink or anything, I would get sick. So I couldn't drink anymore. And the next step was obviously, okay, well then I will find another drug then. But I have seen what drugs do to people from a family member, and I was like, I don't want to do that. I can see the damage it does to them, but to those around them. And so I was like, well, let me just figure out something else. And so what I would take I would take Benadryl, and what it was doing to me was like numbing me, and it was calming me down, because I was in a constant state of angst.
It's like a Xanax, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like I needed a downer, if you know what I mean, to calm me down, and that's what I was doing.
All right, so you drank for a while, and then you switched over to this Benadryl concoction. Mm-hmm. And what happened next as far as therapy or help?
Well, no, I didn't get therapy until I was in my late 30s.
And did you stay depressed between 14 and mid 30s?
Yeah, all the way through up until, I'm 41 now. I still struggle. Mm-hmm. So.
Do you see a counselor now?
I do. I have my therapist. I have a therapist. I see her on the regular. I have a psychiatrist.
She's good?
Yeah.
She's very good?
She's fantastic.
So were you diagnosed with PTSD or?
Yes.
Or no?
Yes, I was diagnosed with panic disorder and PTSD.
All right.
But
so what is she doing about the PTSD? Just counseling?
Yeah.
Not trying anything?
Yeah, that's all you can really do. So here's the thing with when I started going to my psychiatrist. So, and this is the hardest part about it, is that you expect when you go into a doctor, right, and you tell them these are my issues, and then they diagnose you, and then after that they prescribe you something, you're expecting that to work. What happens is your body reacts differently to different medicines, and so you have to go through different ones until you find the one that works. Well, that can be incredibly demoralizing. Like it's like I'm taking a medicine, it doesn't work.
It makes you worse.
Yeah, and you're like, okay, I'm unfixable now. And then I try another one.
You start to panic about it. Yeah, this is, so many people go through this exact same problem, and a lot of the doctors aren't very sympathetic. They say, well, just go off of it, but you can't. You got to wait. Yep. I could never go off of anything.
Yep.
The 2 times I went to a hospital was when I got off of medicine. Mm-hmm. So, I wean off very slowly, very, very slowly, and I recommend that. There's no reason you can't do that unless your psychiatrist is insistent. But I didn't like that when they used to tell me, Well, when I got to the hospital the second time, I was going off a drug, but I hadn't finished going off of it. So I was having symptoms. I went to a doctor and he said, "Oh, you're addicted. You need that drug. You need it." I said, "Yeah, of course I need it because I've been taking it for 2 months
Mm-hmm.
and I can't just drop it." And, he was just a big jerk. He finally gave me the medicine, just a smaller dose.
Yes.
But so what kind of medicines did they give you for it?
So they started off with Effexor, and that one was really good, but one of the side effects was headaches. And it was,
Oh, Effexor has so many, and getting off Effexor is hard as well.
yes. And that's what she said. She's like, I'm going to prescribe this to you, but if you get the headache, let me know, and I will take it off immediately. But what happened was, so I also had insomnia with this, and I still do, but I was so, like, my body was so at ease that I was willing to deal with a headache. That it was that bad. And so when I went back to my next month checkup, she's like, "So how's it going? Are you having headaches?" I'm like, "Well, a little bit, and and she's like, "Okay, well, we need to take it off." I go, "Well, it's okay." She goes, "No, it's obvious that it's working, and you're willing to deal with it."
Sometimes that happened to me when I went on the medicine. It gave me bad headaches for 2 weeks, but I said to myself, I am going to try this.
Yep.
So as long as it doesn't put me in the hospital, I'm going to keep taking it. And it turned out to be a miracle medicine for me. It helped all my apathy. I'm no longer apathetic, and it helped a lot of my depression.
Yeah.
I'm still working on anxiety. It's possible that this medicine causes anxiety. So I don't know if I could take less, but so that's in the process for me. But
yep.
So you're on the right medication. I know there's other processes like EFT. If you listen to the show, it's on one of the episodes. EDMR. If you ever heard of that one?
No, I haven't heard of that one.
Okay, and they take you through a recreation of what you went through.
Oh.
They say it's really good for some people, but I heard from another guy that was on the show that he went berserk. He just went crazy when they went through that horrible thing he went through again. They just wigged out. So
I don't know. That sounds intense. Here's what I will tell you. With my therapist, I did go through something similar to that with my therapist, and at the end of our session, she said, "Now, what you just said to me of what you would have wanted your parents to say to you, say that to yourself. Say that to younger Krystal." And that helped me incredibly, right?
That's a great advice. It helps me with that. Yeah, also.
Yeah.
Or even better than, I don't know if you have any children, but if you say to yourself, what would you do for your child?
Mm-hmm.
How would you take care of this situation for your child? With another loved one,
yeah.
Would you treat your loved one like you treat yourself? And the answer is usually no. And it's difficult. I don't know why we're built this way, but we are built to not take care of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And so many people are doing that now because look at all the problems, and nobody's checking out their diet for one thing. They're not exercising. In this world, in this environment, with the pressures that are in this world, you have to exercise. You have to eat right. That's if you have any kind of a depression. If you don't do that, then it's on you. Then it's your fault that you don't do it. So I know it's hard, and I haven't even started. I have a disability. It's very hard to walk. But they told me to walk, as much as you can to get exercise, and I haven't done that yet. I've gone on a real extreme diet, but... So, yeah, does she talk about that, dieting and exercise, your counselor?
No, not really. I didn't have a bad diet. So, I was doing, I was lifting weights, as CrossFit. I was really active because that was one of my coping mechanisms.
It's good for you. It's not a panacea. You're not going to be, super happy. But it keeps you from getting really messed up and really down. So What's your status now? How do you feel?
So
What kind of progress do you think you made in your recovery?
I think I
I
made,
mean, you're on the right track.
yeah, I think I made a ton of progress in my recovery. So just recently, I was on quetiapine, and what we found out was that it was working really well because I took it at night, so I slept. But I had, I would have different moments of where my heart would race, and then it would kind of calm down. But
Mm.
what happened is what I notice is when I get around certain people, I get triggered. And there was
Right, right.
it was a particular friend that I had that I had started a podcast with, which I'm no longer doing that. I do my own. But she was real triggering for me, and I ended up having two panic attacks uh, 2 months
Mm.
in a row on this medicine that I had been using for 2 years without one. So when I went to
Mm.
the hospital, they were giving me medicine that it doesn't react well with like Ativan or any other Zofran or anything else. So when I went back and talked to my psychiatrist, she was like, "Let's take you off of this because if you have to go back to the hospital, it's not complementary with other drugs that should help you when you have an attack." So we basically took me off of it altogether. I have just clonazepam, which is what we call a rescue drug. So
Yeah,
so if I have an attack, I take it
right.
and it should calm me down.
Yeah, yeah. See, I have anxiety attacks. They're not panic attacks. I
Okay.
just get tremendous anxiety feelings. They were just, I'd be I'm sitting watching TV, and then all of a sudden, this tremendous anxiety happens. And it's really, a lot of times, I'm not even thinking about it. I guess the point is that you did the right thing, and that's what people should do. And it's a horrible thing that bad things happen to good people like that. But if you take care of yourself and you focus on, just living in the now, I always say
Yeah.
that. Or I think the best therapy for someone that's suffering is to do things for other people. Uh, I find that anyone that does that, it helps them. So, I do it also. And it helps me a lot. I mean, I think this podcast helps me a lot because I know I'm getting a message out that I didn't have when I was 11 years old. You didn't have when you were 7.
Yeah.
No, nobody knew anything, and my parents didn't explain anything, and I was neurodivergent, so I was just out in space somewhere. In my childhood, I was in my own bubble.
Hmm.
So then it was almost like they took me, they were nice people, my parents. So they took me kind of from a safe environment and threw me out into this unbelievably peril environment for me because I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know how to socialize, anything like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's
it
exactly.
sounds like you're really doing well in your recovery. That's great. Is there anything that you would want to advertise? Not advertise. Is there anything that you would any kind of links that you would want to announce?
Sure. So,
I know you have I know you have a podcast, right?
yes. So I do. I do have a podcast, and it's Moving with Meaning, the podcast, or I am on Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube Music. So check me out. I have guests, but I also tell my own stories in various different ways. I also
I listened to part of it. It was very good. Yeah,
Oh, you
I
did?
listened
Oh, thank
to.
you.
Yeah, it was just you talking, but you have a nice voice.
Thank
Not
you.
like me.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you're really good. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I also do. I'm also an author, so I'm currently writing a memoir. But I also write fantasy books. So it's spiritual fantasy, but it's essentially my life recreated and reimagined. And what's interesting is that it creates a great story, great plot twist, and
Mm.
I love it to death. It's published out there. It's Balance of Power, book one in the Chosen Path series. Uh,
On Amazon, probably.
yes, yes, and you can find
Okay.
all of this on my website at movingwithmeaning.com. my blog's there. You'll have a link to my podcast. You'll have a link to my books, updates on just me and in everyday life. But I also offer life coaching services. So,
Oh,
yeah, so despite all the stuff going on with me, no one could tell. No one could tell that I was everything that I just told you. Everyone was like, I had no idea. And
you're what we call an ADHD. We call masking. You
yes,
do great masking.
yes. And so what ended up happening was in my career, I was doing quite a bit of career coaching and mental health coaching. I had a lot of my colleagues that would just come to me and talk to me about one, how they can progress in their careers or how they could resolve certain conflicts that they were having in their teams, or transition for different things. Or I had grown men call me crying on the phone
Hmm.
because they just lost
Wow.
someone or they were going through. I mean, because the thing about corporate America is there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of
Oh
mental
yeah.
strain, and no one, yeah, there's nothing that prepares you for that.
But I'm glad you're doing better. Is there anything you want to say before we leave?
Sure. The way I look at my life is, uh, is like a blacksmith, right? And so when they work with metal, they have to heat it to a certain degree so it has to go through fire. It has to be pounded and molded so that it can basically become something special, something useful, something functional.
Mm.
And that's what this trauma did for me. And I want to make
Oh
sure that
yeah.
everyone else looks at it in that same fashion, that you're going to have low points and high points, but you were meant and you're going through fire to be something greater and something stronger. And that's why I always say all moves have meaning.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we were picked to do certain things when we came into this world. I don't know, but I like to think that. But I still want to help people not to suffer so much when they don't need to, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they always say it's character building, whatever. I say no, I didn't need all this,
Mm-hmm.
to build my character. I could have done it anyway. So, I try to help, and that's all you can do in this world is try. But
Yeah,
as long as you keep getting up and getting off the mat, then normally it turns out to be a good ending.
it does. It does.
So everybody should hang in there. I really appreciate you coming on the show. Good luck with your show, and talk to you again. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you giving me a platform to talk to you. Thank you.